Here's how I design charts within Excel. It starts with my three-step process: select, simplify, signal. So first is select. I gotta pick the right chart that quickly communicates the insight to my audience. Here I have a set of data, and I'm just going to highlight this data and add a chart. The chart type I want to use for this is a horizontal bar, because the business question I'm asking is which product categories are driving the most revenue. So I like horizontal bars for that because you can do some quick sorting. So I'm just going to add that in Excel, and then I'm going to show you some steps that I do for simplifying and then signaling the insights. So first of all, I'm going to just make it a little bigger here. I'm going to grab this key business question. By the way, if you're not using business questions as your titles, this is a really good best practice. A lot of times people just put like revenue, value, or something like that at the top, and it's really hard for the audience to know exactly what story you're telling. So I'm going to make it black and bold so it jumps out a little more. And then let's just make this bigger so that you can see more of what I'm doing in the design. So first, simplify. Now that I've selected the chart, I'm going to step number 2, simplify. So I'm going to remove these vertical grid lines. I can just hit delete. The other thing I'm going to do is go ahead and add these data labels. Right click and add data labels off the ends of the bars. And when I do that, I can then remove this very confusing x-axis because it's not formatted well, but I'm also not needing it because of these data labels. So I delete that. It cleans it up even more. The other thing I might want to do is actually format these data labels. So right click and format the labels, and then I'm going to go into this number section here and move my circle up so you can see it. There's a bunch of different options in here. All I really want to do is just go to currency and then set the decimal points to 0. And you're going to see just by doing that already, it's going to clean this up a bit more. We didn't need those extra 2 decimals. So there you go. And now the next thing I want to do to start to signal the insights is, first of all, right click and say format the data series. It's going to open to this third tab, which is the series options. And you've got this gap width. And one of my favorite things to do is to play with the gap width of these bars. I'm actually going to make them bigger, increase the data ink so that you can see them. And I like about 30%, I think, is a good gap width to start to really visualize those bars so much more clearly. Then the next thing I'm going to do is you can actually sort this, because I want to directly answer the question, which product categories are driving the most revenue. So I want the highest values at the top, especially when you have a lot of different categories. This can work really well to pull the answer to the top almost instantly. And so all you really need to do is in your table, you can actually right click and sort the values in the table. And one little trick, when you're using horizontal bars in Excel, smallest to largest, not largest to smallest as you would think, puts it at the top. So when I click that, you'll see that sorting there. So that looks really nice. Now we've got almost an immediate answer to that business question. The last thing you could do here if you wanted is you could play with color. There's some ways to dynamically use color, but I'll just show you a quick one. I can format the data series, and I'm going to maybe make them all a solid, let's say, gray. And then if I wanted to focus on those top 3, click once, click twice, it'll highlight just one bar, and you could color these individually if you wanted. So I might color the top 3 blue because that's where I want their eye to focus. And then if you really wanted to tie it together, you can actually say which product categories are driving the most revenue. And you could say driving the most revenue in that same blue. So it almost acts like a natural legend into your chart. So there you go. A few quick, simple steps. Remember, selecting the right chart is absolutely critical. Then simplify the chart by getting rid of a lot of the noise and the extra axes. And then finally, signal. How do we sort? How do we make those bars bigger? And then how do we even use a little color to draw out the answer to the business question or the story almost instantly?